Cool, so this is the NWC Show, episode 32, and if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Toni Shivers. I'm a wrestling trainee from Source Wrestling School in Glasgow, and I am also part of the Fierce Females Glasgow management team.
That's just getting the plugs in there. But no, so the first question we always start with is, what got you into wrestling? What was that moment you saw it, you decided, you know what, this is my gig, this is my jam? What got you into it?
Well, I started watching wrestling in 2007. I was 8. So I knew about wrestling because my brother watched wrestling, but I never really bothered with it. I was 8-year-old wee lassie, I didn't care. But I was at my neighbour's across the street from where I used to live, where I grew up, and he was like, we were hanging out, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to watch SmackDown?" I'm like, "What SmackDown?" He was like, "Oh, my dad videotaped the latest SmackDown episode. Do you want to watch it?" And I'm like, "Okay." So we watched. I can't remember any of the show except the one match that we did watch was Undertaker versus Batista in a steel cage match for the heavyweight championship, I think it was.
Yep.
And I remember watching it and I was like, man, this is fucking mental. What is this? And I don't really remember the match, but I do remember the ending of the match. It's the match where they both land on the outside of the ring at the same time. And I swear I was hooked. I just loved the dramatics of it. And I was like, I remember looking at him and I'm like, who won? The feet landed at the same time. Who won? And I was hooked since then. And then that's when the obsession started. And I started collecting like wrestling cards and backyard wrestling with my pals on trampolines. It's fun.
I've had a lot of injuries doing the trampoline stuff when I was young. Before I went to wrestling training, I used to do like trampoline wrestling or like. So I'm like 29, which is obviously much older than like I was well into it by 2007. Like I was literally wrestling at that time, but I used to put wooden sheets out on over like bricks with my friends up at where I used to stay. I was like 10 at this time, and we used to practice moves and stuff on it, and it was just sore. Like it was the sorest thing ever. And then somebody got a trampoline, so then we all just went round his back, and we were like, cool, we can do these moves, and it was obviously softer than the wooden boards, but it was cool. And I got a lot of injuries back then, like when I used to cut my arm open for like somebody would like hit a stunner and go flying right off the trampoline, which was fun. It was fun. But then you go do it and you're like, oh right, I was definitely hurting people when I was doing it. But that's cool.
Are you even a real wrestling fan if you didn't backyard wrestle at one point in your life?
I think it's just one of those things that everybody does, isn't it? Like it says, don't try this at home, and you're like, you know what? I need to try that at home.
Yeah. I'm not gonna listen to that ever.
Like, but so how long have you been training? It's been a few years.
5 years.
So quite a long time then.
Yeah, I went to the first ever Source Wrestling's all women's class. Like the first time I ever actually did train was, I think I was like 13. I went to PBW, and because I didn't know any wrestling school, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Like because I was so obsessed when I was younger, and I was like, I want to do this, but I don't know where any training schools are because like back then it was difficult to find a training school. Now there's like everywhere you turn a street there's a wrestling school, but back then there was like nothing. So it was actually, I had mutual friends with Lou King Sharp, and he and a few others helped me get into PBW, and I went to a few classes, and it was so far away from where I lived. It was in Barrhead, I think it was, and I lived in Moulton. So it was an absolute travel to get to it, and I was only 13, and they couldn't always come and get me. So I stopped going because I just couldn't get there all the time. And then like a year later, I went back once again and then stopped again. But I was 17. It was 2016. I was 17 and I went to the first Source all females class because my friend saw it, like an ad on Facebook, and she was like, do I go to this? And I'm like, I actually saw that too. I'm game. Because we could only it was like a bus journey from town to there. And I was like, absolutely, I want to go.
No, I was about 12, 13 when I first started wrestling training. So I was out in Linwood, which was back in like 2000 and If I was 12, it was like 2003, 4 was when I first started, and it was like out in Linwood, which is, if you're from Glasgow, you know how far Linwood is to get to. It's like one bus, and it was on a Sunday, so it was like there was only 2 buses. You could get it at 6:30 in the morning or something like that. But anyway, it was in the middle of nowhere, and we used to train from 8 in the morning to 5 at night. And that's where I went, and I just fell in love with it. It was in an industrial estate in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's literally nothing in Linwood. High flyers flats, couple of shops, industrial estate, nothing else. Like, well, not what I seen. That's the only place I went to, but it was like I just fell in love with doing it. Then I met my best friend there. I went and worked in Holland. He was there. We done some training and stuff like that, and it was just like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Which is, I think, when you get the bug for wrestling, it's so hard to like get away from it. Like, so all you want to do is just go in there.
Because of how obsessed I was growing up, like, because I never watched wrestling, I was brought up by my grandparents, so they didn't have like Sky Sports and stuff like that, and I begged, please can you get the new Sky package so I can get Sky Sports to watch Raw, please? Begged, and I finally got it, and that was me. I would stay up on a school night to however hours with my gran in her bedroom, making her watch it with me. She's like, you better go to bed for school. I'm like, shh, Raw's on. Shh.
I think it's, people forget how the time difference between between Scotland, UK, and then America. Like,
I hate America.
I remember being up there to like when I review stuff now, so I get up extremely early, so it's easy for me to review stuff. But like, when I was younger, I remember staying up, being so tired. My mum would never allow me to stay up to watch a pay-per-view because it was so late at night. And I always remember a lie that she told me was Rebellion was coming here, I think it was. And I was like, can I get the pay-per-view? And she was like, no, it's on too late. Like, it was obviously going to be like the American time. And then like years later, I found out, and I was going, you lied to me about that. I could have enjoyed that pay-per-view. It was on at like 5 o'clock. It was like during the day. But that's, people forget, like, the rest of the world needs to stay up to either insane hours or get up insane hours.
Like, see, when you watch like WrestleMania, obviously they have it in a big stadium, and you see how light it is outside there, and I'm sitting like drinking like dark fruits, and it's like 3 in the morning, and it's pure bright, and they're on sunshine, and I'm like, hurry up, I want to go to bed.
See, I get up at 3 in the morning, so it's easy for me to like just get up and watch wrestling really early. So I normally get up before anybody's even started reporting on it, which is good. So I'm like, I can kind of catch up on.
Yeah, I've started to get smarter. I'm like, if I'm staying up for this pay-per-view, I'm going to nap during the day, so I don't struggle.
The naps are essential, especially if you're getting up. Like, if you try to stay up for the watch like WrestleMania and stuff, you need to plan 3 nights in advance. You need to stay like, okay, I need to start staying up. It's like working a night shift to be a wrestling fan sometimes.
That's what I do. Like, the night before, especially WrestleMania, the night before, I'll stay up as late as possible, so I sleep all day and wake up for WrestleMania.
The worst thing is the two nights have kind of ruined that for most people, because like, you're like, cool, so I'm going to be awake for 3 kind of nights, and then it's like a whole.
I think it's so much easier though, because it's not like a 6 fucking whatever hour show, and it's like half, so I can like get a good night's sleep afterwards.
It's good to watch because obviously it cuts it down, but like the general thing, trying to like stay up for it, stay up the longer times, take notes for it, reviews for it. I'm like, this is far too long, but it is cool just kind of for it to be half, especially like you say. So it was getting to the point it was like 6-8 hours. It was like an 8-hour show, I think, one year, and you're like, this is far too long to watch. Like, how could you be in the arena as well? I'd be like sitting there.
It was WrestleMania 5, no 5, 35. What one was it? I can't remember. The one that the women's main event, was that the longest one?
I think it was. It was just.
I was in my friend's house, and we have a house party every year for WrestleMania because we are all big, massive wrestling fans, and it's called Seshomania. Seshmania, you get it. And we invite everyone because, like, even like non-wrestling fans want to come because we just have an absolute ball. We get like £100 worth of dominoes. We get so much booze for everyone in. We play drinking games. We end up drunk and start wrestling on her carpet. And but that WrestleMania, man, we were all dying. You should have saw the state of us the next morning because we were like, I can't do this. Like, please just end it all.
So, what's your kind of next kind of steps do you see you're taking? Obviously, after the COVID situations away when you can start to get back to training more and into the ring and stuff like that? Where do you see yourself going? Do you see yourself like staying, just being in that kind of the all women's kind of style of wrestling, or would you like to go to like a WWE, Japan, AEW, something like that? What's your kind of long term aspirations?
Like every wrestler is like always like most wrestlers are always having like massive dreams. Like, oh, I want to go to WWE, I want to go to New Japan, I want to go here, Ring of Honor, blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's great, and that's great. You have such high hopes, but I don't. It's not the fact I don't have hopes and I don't think I can do it. It's the fact of I just want to travel the world. Really, I think that's my biggest goal. I just want to travel in different places. I don't see WWE as a goal for me.
Mm-hmm.
But like I would love to just travel the world and wrestle in different places, meet new people, learn new things. But I just want to wrestle everywhere possible I can in the UK. That's like my biggest goal at the moment. Well, other than actually debuting. Because I've been training for so long, it's been so brutal. Because I can see, I know people aren't meaning it in a rude way, but they're like, you've trained for 5 years and you've not debuted yet, and I'm like. It's like, because there were so many aspects. I got pregnant, so that like cut me back for however long. And then I was pregnant during COVID, and then COVID happened, and I was like, I'm never gonna get back to training, never gonna debut, nothing's happening. But like, my goals right now are just get back to training first of all, debut, and I just want to wrestle as much as I can in the UK.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just that a lot of people have long-term goals, but the guys that I've been speaking to recently are like on the network already and stuff like that. So they're like the ICW guys that have been on the network, and they're like, yeah. I want to go to WWE, I want to go to AEW, I want to do something. But like when I speak to guys that are still starting out or have had a few matches, it is just kind of like, well, we just kind of want to get on any show that we can. And I think COVID has it's ruined a bunch of like kind of people that would have probably debuted in the past year or so. But they're just dying to get back to it. They're like, there's going to be so many debuts. I think it's going to be so hard to keep up. But every show will be like 5-6 new people coming in, which will be really cool because they're going to be putting on like insane shows. Like they're not going to be half-assing it, or they're not going to be scared. They're going to be, I'm going to and doing this 100% because this is what I want to do, and I've had to sit in the house for a year.
Yeah, we all took it for granted. We all need to pull the fun.
I think as well, like everybody, like any business, anything at all, is just like before COVID, you were like, they're never going to make you have to sit in the house because like this weird cold thing that's floating around that can like randomly kill people for no, like you can't see it or nothing. You're like, that never happened in this day and age, and it's shit does happen in this day and age. What do we do now? Everybody's had to try and change stuff in that, which has been cool to watch. Like ICW changing kind of the stuff that they were doing. Obviously they're on a network now. WWE's been changing stuff, AEW. It's really cool to see how different wrestling's becoming.
Yeah, it's nice to see how people are adapting to it. Because like everyone, I remember last year when they like were cancelling, like the rumours were going about cancelling WrestleMania, and most people were like, yeah, that's the right thing to do. This is really dangerous. We don't want to put these people in like danger just to entertain us. But then like the other aspect was, we need something to take our minds off absolutely everything that's happening right now. So I'm really glad that WrestleMania went ahead, and it'll be interesting to watch it again this year. Even though they like WWE are like sliding in crowds at the moment, so who knows?
I think WrestleMania this year is like 25,000 each night or something like that, which I think will be really weird because it's in a stadium that normally sits 80,000 people or whatever, and it's just going to be all these people pure spaced out. I think it might be a little bit of a dud feeling to it, unless they have maybe the TVs or something in there to try and.
I'm like the Thunderdome got a lot of crap, but that's a really smart idea, and it made the shows more bearable. Because I don't know about you, but watching wrestling with no crowd involvement is dire. The silence was just so eerie and so uncomfortable, and that's like, thank God, like last year's WrestleMania had some smashing matches, but a lot of the matches deserved the crowd to make it even better.
100%. Like I've been to wrestling shows when it's just been me in the crowd, like me and like my friend, like we're just sitting watching it, and it's so awkward, like because they're just looking at you, but nobody being there will just be. It's just, I don't think it would feel right because the whole point of wrestling is to play off the crowd. Like you need to listen to what they're saying. But I think Mania this year is going to be different. It'll be fun, hopefully. So talking about kind of COVID and stuff like that, what's something that you dislike about wrestling today? What's something you dislike about the whole thing? Is it the in-ring work you don't like? Is it like the Twitter stuff when everybody does shouts? What's something that you dislike about wrestling today?
I'm very nitpicky. Obviously, the Twitter shenanigans are always fun to watch. It gets a bit dire after a while, obviously because of like the speaking out movement and stuff that happened. But mostly, like, I hate watching matches that have zero story to it and they just have thrown in like 100 mile, like a million, like big fancy moves in the one match. And it's a great match, it's a 5-star. And I'm like, no, it's not. None of that made any sense. I didn't care about who won or lost. That's the only thing I really have a problem with in today's wrestling. I like stories. Like, my favourite era of wrestling is the Ruthless Aggression era. Like, the Attitude Era was great. Obviously, it was iconic, but I love soap opera wrestling. That's my favourite type of wrestling. I love the over-the-top stories, the shenanigans of it all, and when it comes with an also great wrestling match, it's phenomenal. So I can't deal with matches that have zero storyline. It's just happening for the sake of it, and there's like a million big moves in there that just make no sense.
No, 100% agree. I don't like when you see so many guys doing like so many flips or so many women doing like both of them are. You'll see somebody they'll run off the ropes and they'll get knocked down, jump back up, do a flip, bounce out the ring, go up the top rope, do a flip back in. You're like, what are you doing? You're just being knocked out. Like, move back, like chill out, relax. Like, you don't need to do this.
Like, I have like that's the only thing it makes no sense. You just like took whatever big thing and now you're up and at him like nothing happened. You're not really helping the scenario like wrestling's fake, are you? You're not keeping it alive, bro.
And if you look back at that Ruthless Aggression era, like the one I always remember for that is Big Show going through the ring. So like when the ring broke with Brock Lesnar, Big Show was sold that like he was shot, like he literally lay there till the end of the show. There's pictures of him still laying there when people were leaving, people were coming in trying to help him and stuff like that. But they just don't do it anymore. It's like the AEW with the Shaq thing. I mean, he's in the back of the ambulance. You can see him walk out, and it's like, you're just killed it. It's a whole mystique to it. You've just ruined it. Like it's pretty annoying when you see people do that.
In this day and age, like people don't really care about keeping like it alive and stuff like that, and people just want to post what they want to post on their social medias. But if hypothetically I was a WWE wrestler, I would not be sitting posting personal things on like my social media. I'd be like still in character because that just keeps it alive. Like I watched Brody's podcast she did with her, and I totally agree with everything she said about the Undertaker. It's just really disheartening to see. Like I think after the documentary came out, I think maybe he was allowed to like start being like Mark and stuff, it was really fucking interesting to watch because we never got to see him act like that ever. So I think after the documentary, it was allowed a little bit, but now like the whole thing is dead, and it's really depressing.
No, I think as well the Undertaker thing's a bit of a weird scenario because he did keep character for like so long. Like you had to kind of let him out for a little bit, but I totally agree. I think social media is the biggest thing in the world. Why are they not using it to their advantage? Like if you're like Randy Orton spitting up black stuff on a Monday, Tuesdays posting pictures of his kids, it's like, what are you doing? Just keep it alive for like 2 days. That'll do.
None of that. Legend killer, none of that. You're not good with kids. You don't have kids, none of that. Why are you arguing with Soldier Boy on Twitter? I saw that, I was howling. I was like, I can't be arsed.
I think there's a lot of stuff that could be done with wrestling that could be better, and at this point it just feels like it's transitioning. It's trying to learn from the old way to the new way, which it takes a little bit of time for them to kind of pick up. But on a more positive note, what's something that you love about today's wrestling? What's something that you're like, this is why I love wrestling about today's kind of one?
How accessible wrestling is, like how much wrestling is happening, because like obviously back in the day you would know more than I would, but like when you talk about wrestling it's always just WWE. But now, but the past like good few years, there's just so much out there to watch. Like it's hard to keep up with it all, obviously, but like you can always find something you like, and you can dabble in things you don't think you would like. And Like, oh my god, I wish network was a thing when I was young. Oh my god, imagine having network back in the day. Like when I started getting into wrestling, I got into wrestling really late. So the way I would like study and find out more about wrestling was through YouTube.
See, for me, if the network was there, it would have been a WWF network and a WCW network. I would have lost years of my life to like just sitting watching these wrestling shows, because I had 3 VHS. If you remember what VHS is, it's the cassette kind of tape things. For all the younger audience, I'm old. But
I'm not that young.
I had 3 of them, getting much younger than what I'm are, so I don't know what the young people used to have when they were growing up. But like I had 3 of them, and that's all I used to watch. 2 WCW and King of the Ring, and that was it. It was Bash of the Beach 99, Spring Stampede 99, and King of the Ring 99, and I can literally talk you through them, like the moves, the sets, when it was, what the commentary says. I watched it so much and I still watch them to this day. Like I still love them. They're not the great pay-per-views. I wouldn't recommend you go watch them, but I love them. I can watch them like every single day. But the network back then would have just destroyed my life. Like I would have probably just never left the house, which would have
Never left the house.
So obviously it is cool seeing how much kind of access to wrestling is as well. But a thing that I think's causing problems in wrestling is nobody's let the later, like, so the Attitude Era, like Stone Cold Steve Austin stuff, is you can still go get it so easy, and nobody's let that kind of go away yet. Like, it's people still talk about the Attitude Era like it was yesterday, like it was 20 plus years ago. So like the Ruthless Aggression Era was like nearly 20 years ago as well, which is insane to think. Like, people still talk about like the John Cena winning his first belt, Austin against Bret Hart and stuff like that. But then like that, I think that's hurting today's kind of work, because everybody's like, well, I can just go watch like all the great wrestling from years ago. I don't really need to mega keep up with today's wrestling. Like, especially when you're watching like a Monday Night Raw for 3 hours, you're like, I could have just go out and watch like a cool pay-per-view from like the 90s.
Yeah, people just want to watch what they like and what they know. Like, I'm the same with like movies. It takes me a lot to go watch a new movie, so I totally get like people are like that with wrestling. Like, you just like what you like, and like a lot of like older fans, it's mostly like older fans who just don't want to give new wrestling like a chance, because they're just like, oh, I don't like it, stuff like that.
No, I
But
think
it's
there's
such a shame because of how accessible wrestling is. There's just so much of it. There's so much that you probably don't. You're missing wrestling. You probably would absolutely adore and love, but you're just so set on what you like. You're not experimenting or even trying.
definitely, I think as well, if you think about it, so WWE is the biggest company in the world, and everybody's just got, from back in the day, WWE is the wrestling company. And if you were just watching WWE, you're not really got much NXT and the main roster. There's only kind of 2 different stuff. People might not be getting AEW because that's on like mega late everywhere else in the world. Like here, it's on like ITV4 at like midnight, and then it gets shown a repeat like a couple of days later at 1 a.m. Like, show it earlier. Why are you still showing it late? But a lot of people just don't really get the time to watch wrestling anymore, and that's the whole reason for this channel, is to get people back into watching wrestling. To make at least one person, somebody I went to school with, their son was like, she was like, oh, he's started watching wrestling. He was into it, and then he's got onto the old kind of stuff like Sabu, because I had him on, and then like, all these different people, and it's like, it's cool. I've made somebody like start to enjoy wrestling. I'm happy with that. That's my whole goal of channels, to make people realise wrestling's really, really good at the minute. It's no mainstream at all. Like, it's a pure niche, but like, it's really, really good. People need to come and watch it because you've got an insane amounts of talent. And that brings me to my next question is, so I think women's wrestling is the best it's ever been. When I was growing up, it was a toilet break wrestling match, and I says that to Molly Spartan as well, and I thought she was going to hit me, but it was like, it is pretty much, when she agreed as well, she was like, when she was in Walkabout, it is the toilet break match that people just went to the toilet. Now that's what I used to sit and watch most. Like Rhea Ripley, I'm the biggest mark for her at the minute. Like, I think she's the best wrestler in the business at the minute, but I don't see wrestling as like a women male stuff like that. I just see it as a complete just wrestler. You're a wrestler, you're a wrestler. I don't really care if you're a man, woman, whatever you do.
Everyone,
So
like when
what
they
do
make
you
a big deal about no longer like calling the women divas and just calling them superstars, that was a big step.
what do you think about, so every woman that I've had on, I've always brought this up, so I'll bring it up to you. What do you think about men going against women? Do you think that would be cool? Like, I feel it would be great if you seen somebody like Charlotte Flair going against Randy Orton, and they put on a great match. You know what I mean? But I know obviously people will be like, oh, it's like abuse and stuff like that. We don't agree with that, but I get. What do you think about that?
The intergender conversation is always so funny to me. It's like people always go on about how wrestling's fake and blah 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 blah. Then why do you care if a woman and a guy fight? Like, we're missing out on so many good matches just because you won't let them actually have a match. Like, I totally get like the standpoint of like, oh, blah blah blah, and they don't want kids to watch it. I totally get that standpoint, but I think it's just an old mindset. It just needs to be scrapped altogether because we're missing out on so many good matches that we could be having if they just let intergender matches happen on like WWE and stuff like that.
See, what annoys me with that as well is like back in the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression era, when if it was like a tag team match, like Triple H and a woman against The Rock, and I think it was Triple H, Stephanie McMahon against The Rock and Trish Stratus is one that I just remember. But like The Rock went against Stephanie McMahon in the ring, then Triple H went against Trish Stratus as well. Like nowadays, it's like you tag in the guy, the woman needs to go out and stuff like that, and it's like, where did you lose that part?
One of my favourite like matches back in the day of like an intergender matches that actually happened that they somehow allowed. I know it was part of the story to allow it, but do you remember when Trish Stratus and Lita tag teamed against Chris Jericho and Christian?
Yeah.
That was a good match. It was brutal because they just kicked the fuck out of them, but stuff like that. Like nowadays, if you said to someone that that match happened, they go, "What?"
I know. I think it's
fucking a good match.
It's such a weird time. Like I know, like my daughter, she is much stronger than my son. Like she drop kicks him. She tries to DDT him and all that kind of stuff. Like gets him into like jiu-jitsu holds, but it's like I don't like it. They're just fighting. Like it's just like carrying on. No real fighting. If everybody's out there thinking they're fighting, they're just like carrying on. Play fighting is every human on the planet does. But I think it's just so weird. Like I don't understand why you can have like Rhea Ripley against Damian Priest. Like I put them in a tag team. I think that'd be cool. They've got similar looks, the same type of people, and you're just there's no tag team happening. I'm like, just that makes sense for a tag team wrestling match. It doesn't make sense what you're doing with like I don't know Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. That makes no sense at all. Like those, why are you teaming them? Like when you got these two same characters, but you're just not doing it. And I think it hurts wrestling a wee bit as well. Like it used to feel like anything goes, and then now it's like, oh, you can't say this, you can't do that, you can't touch this person, and it's like, you're kind of ruining it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just think that's my gripe with wrestling. Know that I'm for abusing anybody or anything like that. Everybody should be safe and fine and all that kind of stuff.
It's so silly. Like these are professional wrestlers. They know what they're doing. They trust each other. No one's actually going to get properly hurt. And it'll be a fantastic match story. Like I would absolutely. I don't know why, but Nia Jax and Big Show as a tag team just sounds amazing. Imagine the domination that they would do in a fucking roster.
See, I'm not a big Nia Jax fan, and everybody always obviously, I know she's the most loved wrestler in the world at this minute. Especially if you go on Twitter, you can see like the minute she comes out, everybody hates her. The way I try and do it is like I'm not a big fan of her. I think she's not good. For me, she's not a good wrestler. It's not something I want to sit and watch. I like Shayna Baszler, but I really like her kind of style. But I try and keep it positive. So I try and find something positive, which for me sometimes can be really hard for watching Nia Jax. I don't think she's a good wrestler. And the key point that everybody keeps forgetting is I'm saying wrestler. I'm not saying like woman or whatever. I don't think she's a good wrestler, period, for anybody. And that's just... Yeah. One of the reasons I like wrestling is everybody can have different opinions. Like you can like Nia Jax, I can not like her. That's wrestling.
I kind of agree with you. I'm not actually that big a fan of Nia Jax, but the hate she get, like obviously she's fucked up quite a lot, and I think sometimes she is a bit dangerous the way she handles things. Because I think, and this is just my perspective, but she just thinks because she's big, she just throw people around and they're gonna be fine when it's not that at all. But the way she get like the same with Brie Bella, I'm gonna get started. It's very sexist. If a woman fucks up a match, you hear about it for days, weeks, never let it go. if a guy does it, we talk about it for the like moment and then it's gone every time.
No, I totally get. I mean, like it's for me. I talk about it either way. I don't care if you're a man, woman, whatever you are in the ring. If you're in wrestling, if you ruin wrestling for me, if you take me out of that moment of disbelief, that's it. You have literally just ruined my night. Like I'm like, what are you doing? Like the Luchasaurus the other week, we done like he was going to do a move off the ropes and then he just like, oh, let's reset, and it's like, why did you just do that? You just ruined my night. That's me done now. Like I knew I need to sit and watch this show, and I'm not going to enjoy it. And it was annoying. But the one thing that I brought up with Brody Adler the other day was, why is it always a bigger woman that need to wrestle guys? I would love to see, like I said, I'd rather see like Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks. I would love to see them all go against whoever they want. Like everybody should just be able to. There should be like a world championship for, obviously have men women's division if you want, but one world championship for all of wrestling would be so like I really cool. Okay, this year Charlotte Flair is going to be the main person in wrestling. Like she's the person to look at this year, which is it just boggles my mind why it's always like, oh look, we're going to get this big tall woman in, like back in the day with China. We're going to get China in, but we can't have these women wrestle against men. So that doesn't make any sense. Just because you're saying that person's bigger, that makes no sense at all.
Like when they do like that, like nowadays when they do like dabble in like intergender match, it's always like a bigger like woman against like a smaller guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, they're both everyone's an athlete. I think they can all hold their own against each other. So I think people need to get in the mindset of like when you watch like they always have like an underdog story, like when like Great Khali and like Rey Mysterio happened. It was like, oh, Rey Mysterio's the big underdog, and how is he going to pull this one off? Why can't we just like look at it the same way as like women's wrestling, but
Yeah.
like intergender?
I think that would be an insane storyline as well. Like a woman, like they could literally, for me, I would book it as like women walk out, say they've had enough and all that kind of stuff. Guys start calling them names and they come back. They're going to go up against them, put somebody up against a guy. They win the match. Technically, they win the belt. You've got like a whole year worth of storytelling, but no, they just try and avoid it. And it's like,
If they bite the bullet and just break all of it and just let them all wrestle each other, I think people start to respect like women's wrestling a lot more. If like women can hold, like they clearly can, it's been proven when they like if like younger generations and like they put it out there so much, like say WWE next week says fuck it, all the matches are gonna be intergender, you're gonna have to start to accept it, and then everyone's mindset are gonna get more warped into women can run with the boys, it's fine.
mm-hmm.
Like everyone, stop saying we're all superstars and then never allowing intergender to happen.
I know. I just it annoys me, and then especially Nia Jax when she went into the men's Royal Rumble that 1 year, 2 years ago or something. I was like, well, could you not just put like some of the other? Why has the women got their own Royal Rumble? Just put them in the same Royal Rumble, and then whoever wins that's the person that's going to run with it for the year. Like the Royal Rumble, obviously, when Stone Cold won it, he was the guy you would want to watch. The Rock won it, he's the guy you want to watch. How can somebody like Bianca Belair, how could she not be like the person you want to watch this year? Instead, it always still feels, and I think that's just like a poor fumble for WWE. It always still feels like the men's wrestling's the main focus and women's wrestling isn't. And it's like, but they're so good. Like, why can you know? No, like wrestling's so good at the minute. Why can we not just like have this feel as good as them? Especially with like the women's tag team belts, which is just a joke. You've got like the women's championship as well. It's always like team them together, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, they're not making any sense to this storyline at all. Stop concentrating on one aspect of wrestling. You've got so much to do.
I hate like in this day and age, like like most wrestling promotions, like the rosters like somewhat balance each other out.
Mm-hmm.
There's like so many women's wrestling, like women wrestlers in the UK, but when you go to a UK show, there's like say it's like a 7-match card. 6 of those matches are men and there's one women's one. That is one of my biggest pet peeves ever. I'm like, there's so many women wrestlers in the UK. You have no excuse not to book more than one match. So I feel like they should half it. Like say like a 6 match card, like 3 men's, 3 women's. It just boggles my mind. Like one match on a show in this day and age. It just
Definitely. I just think it should just be like everybody's just in a pot of a wrestler who should be getting obviously if you want to keep the belts, like men belt, women belt, whatever you want to do with that, that's fine. But everybody's just a wrestler. Just let them go. And I don't understand why, like, it's obviously I'm having this conversation as well. It's like women go against men. Why can men go against women? Like, why can like a guy no go? Like, you always like just now they've got that Reginald guy doing his whatever the hell he's doing. Like, why can he not have like he's just a joke character, and then it makes the women's division look like a joke? Like, it doesn't really
like
make.
That wee match he had with Sasha Banks, it was a good match. It kept up with her. She had a good pace with him. Like, I'm not really a big Sasha Banks fan, but that was enjoyable to watch because they could keep up with each other. And it was just really refreshing to see. But like that's the thing. Every year when like Money in the Bank happens or like Royal Rumble happens, there's like this tiny spot in my brain. I'm like, why can't they just go for like the different sexes belt? Like, are you telling me? Say at the time, whoever wins like the men's Royal Rumble, they like go, I want to face her at WrestleMania because it's an easy win. Like, and then he gets beat. It's just easy storytelling, and they just never do it.
Or like the woman comes out at the end and just cashes in, gets the guy when he's weak. Next month, you've got like builds up. She's like, well, I'm the champion now. You need to go through all this kind of stuff. Then she wins. Then you've put her over twice, and you've got maybe a third month put over, 4 month put over, and then it's like if she did lose it, you're like goes back to the women's division. It's like, well, I want to go see what she's doing as well. I just think it's like you said, it's simple booking, but they're just too scared to do it, and everybody does it. Like AEW's women's division's a joke. Like, who even really knows who's in AEW at the minute? Impact Wrestling's probably the best kind of women's division in NXT. They two really get it working. Like, the NXT one just feels just on par with them. Like, I'm excited to see Adam Cole as much as I'm excited to see Io Shirai. Like, it doesn't bother me, but then like when you're on AEW, it's like who's he even here? I know a few people that work there, and they say the same thing. They're like, it's the women's division's just like weird there.
Like, I don't even really watch AEW, but I see like when like a show's happening, obviously it's all over Twitter, whatever's happened at the show. I'm just like, my opinion, I don't really think AEW actually care about wrestling. I think they just care about popping people on Twitter and trending for like a day or two. They don't actually give a fuck about the show, storylines, keeping like things going, moving to the next step of a story. They just want to pop people on Twitter.
Yeah, for me, I just feel they've got their niche market. They know they're kind of indie, like the Young Bucks. Like my fiance, she does not know who the Young Bucks are. So we sat down watching the AEW show, and she's like, "Who's these new guys?" And I'm like, "They've literally been wrestling for like 15 years or whatever it is." And she's like, "No, got a clue who they are." Like, does not care. She's like, "I don't really like them." And it's like, no, if you're just a casual fan, you're not really into it. Like, and then they make like their kind of in jokes with like the fans at home that are really into their kind of stuff. They make their jokes. It's like, who are you making these jokes for? Like the 6 people sitting watching this at home. Like, nobody really cares. Like, even some stuff like they do like just digs at WWE and stuff like that. But I get what you mean. Like, I watch it for the review show. I was a big AEW fan at the start. I was like, this is going to be the next WCW. The TNA for it went like to shit, but it's just it makes no sense, half the stuff that they do.
It had all the potential in the world to be fan-fucking-tastic, and they just shit the bed.
No, 100%.
Like, I go through phases of watching wrestling. I really do. I just get bored, really. But when I get back into it, I'm in love. Like, I can go like months without watching Raw, SmackDown, NXT, but as soon as I put on like a random Raw show or like a pay-per-view, I'm automatically clued into what's happening because they keep that so solid. That's like one of the biggest praises I have for WWE, but AEW just don't have that at all.
I think it's two different companies. Obviously, WWE has, as much as people can say AEW is owned by like a multi-millionaire, like that's cool, but WWE make billions a year. Like, it's two totally different things. If you're a millionaire and you're spending money and losing money in a show, to be making billions, like WWE know what they're doing, and it's not always good. Sometimes it's really terrible. Like, sometimes it's really bad. But then the same you can say about AEW. And just to clarify, for everybody who thinks I hate AEW, I like all wrestling. I literally watched like French wrestling, like middle of nowhere in a village from like 1999, found footage French wrestling. Like, I just love wrestling. It's my favourite thing to watch. And I just want to be want it to be the best. I want everybody to enjoy it, and I want everybody to just fall back
everyone
in
has
love with
different
wrestling.
opinions. So like people are gonna hate things that other people absolutely adore. It's just because we're all different minds. So
Yeah,
people get angry at other people's opinions. If you're not like attacking someone in like a mean manner, I don't see the problem of saying your opinion on what you dislike and what you do like.
100%. I think it's just one of those, like, people are so aggressive with their opinions. I think it might be a Scottish thing, so a lot of Scottish guys that I've had on, and women as well, have just been like, just do what you want, like what you want, like it doesn't bother me. But like the other day, I was standing I was watching a goat. It's a weird story. I was watching there was a goat, and I had to help this woman. She was a long story, but I had a Donald Duck jacket on, so I took my kid to nursery, and he likes when I kind of wear it, and somebody was walking by and they were like, "Oh, you're a racist." I was like, what are you talking about? And then they were like, "Oh, because Donald Duck was like a Nazi thing," and I was like, "Well, I'm not racist. I like this jacket. It's comfy. I'm standing where I go." And then it's the same thing that they people just preconcept like, "Oh, this guy's just a racist because the jacket he's wearing," even though I'm standing where I go, which is weird. And it's the same thing that people do with wrestling. It's like, I'm an AEW fan, and this is it. Like, if you don't like it, you're wrong. Like, you're 100% wrong. Like, I'm the most non-racist. I don't care. Whatever you do, what you want to do, I don't really care. Like, as long as I'm happy, I don't care. But like, I'll talk.
Like always get shit because I'm not a biggest fan of AJ Styles. I understand that he's a good wrestler, but I just don't see the hype. Like when he debuted, the whole fucking wrestling world erupted when he debuted for WWE, but I could not give a fuck. I was like,
If you can pick any of these matches to go back and watch, there's a triple threat between Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, and him. Go get that one. It's on YouTube. Watch it. It's like 20 minutes long. You'll get why everybody poor loves him. That's that early TNA run. Is he put on insane matches every single week? Like, just made that X division. But I get what you mean. Like, I probably wouldn't say he's not been like AJ Styles that I would remember for a long time. But I still enjoy him. I could watch him every day. But like I was saying, like, people will literally be like, "You're totally wrong. This guy is the best guy in the world. Like, you cannot say he's bad." But believe what you want. Like, that was what my story with the goat was people like kind of they have their misconceptions of you, and then they'll argue with you to tell you like they were standing arguing when like you're a racist, and I'm like, how can you argue with me? Leave me alone. Like, I've got a goat next to me. But it's the same.
people need to accepting like other people are gonna have different opinions no matter what.
Aye, 100%.
You don't have to agree, but you can at least respect their opinion.
Aye,
and maybe even ask about their opinion. Maybe get their side, like their point of view, to maybe help you understand why they think that way. There's no need to sit and attack them.
Aye, no, 100%. That's what I do. I just ask them like, "Oh, why do you think about that? Like, why do you think that?" And then tell you. Then I'll be like, "Well, I think this way." Cool. Let's move on. Let's go do something else. Like, I mean, it's not like an end of the world. You don't need to agree with everything that somebody agrees. Like, I have friends that I don't agree with anything that they believe in, but we like wrestling. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's like the one thing we talk about. We don't talk about anything else that we don't agree with. But so, kind of coming at the end of the podcast is 3 questions. If you've watched any of the shows, there's one that I keep to the very end that I don't send you, but the other 2 I have. So, who's your favourite wrestler of all time?
Lita.
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 We've never had Lita on it before. I remember getting literally nobody says Lita.
Never had Lita.
I think
what I just said about having people having different opinions? I take it fucking back. I take it back. You're all wrong.
She was, when I was younger, she was always the person that I liked to watch wrestle, and Trish Stratus was the person that I liked to watch her promo skills from it. That's the only time I really remember getting into.
What made their matches and what their feud was so good is what Trish was strong at, Lita was weak at, but what Lita was strong at, Trish was weak at. They just balanced each other and meshed so well. Like, obviously, when I started wrestling, Lita wasn't wrestling at the time, so my first favorite wrestler at the time was like Edge, John Cena, Melina, Victoria. But then when I started watching older wrestling, that's when I discovered Lita, and then I've just obsessed since then. She's like my favorite wrestler, like one of the reasons I wanted to be a wrestler.
I think she's so cool as well. Like, she just wrestles, and it was when she took the Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, like the Hardy Boys kind of gimmick.
Yeah.
Just done the same thing, and she was just so good at it. So another question is, what's your favourite event of all time? What's the event that you could sit and watch just all the time?
Would that be like a pay-per-view or like a event?
Anything. Could just be an event you've been to. Could be just a random Raw. Just anything at all.
Probably WrestleMania 35. Like, even though it was like the longest WrestleMania we've ever had, but it was like Kofi Mania, then it was the women's main event. It was just everything about that show was fantastic, and especially because I sat and watched it with my pals, and it was just really good, fun memories to make. And it was just, I just love WrestleMania. I can't think of a bad WrestleMania. Like, there's like ones that are better than others, but there's always a match that people are going to enjoy. And I think that show I'd happily watch over and over again because it's just so many great matches in it, and it's just such a fun atmosphere. And honestly, at the point, I just want to watch anything that has a crowd. I just miss it so much.
WrestleMania, there has been bad WrestleManias. I was on a live stream with Rated R for Wrestling, who's another cool channel, and it was WrestleMania 9. It's, if you ever want to watch the worst WrestleMania ever, arguably, go watch WrestleMania 9. It's so bad, like so bad. Just go watch it and just.
Where was that?
Like 1993, I think it was. But it was terrible. It was the Undertaker against Giant Gonzalez and stuff like that. Like, we went back and watched that, and it was just terrible. Like, really, Bret Hart and Yokozuna main evented it, so it's pretty hard to get into. You know, like, it's pretty bad. But the final question we always ask everybody is the one that people will hum and haw at it, or they'll know the answer straight away. So, if you could replace yourself or add yourself to any match in history, what would it be? My one is always going to be, I would replace Owen Hart to go against Bret Hart, SummerSlam 94 in that blue steel cage match, because that is the greatest match in wrestling history for me. And what would your one be?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily put myself in like a great match that I loved, because I loved it, so I don't want to change anything about it. But if I was to put myself in a match ever, I'd probably want to be in the first ever Women's Royal Rumble, because everything about that was historic, and everyone in the world was watching it, and it was probably the best Royal Rumble we've had in a fucking while. Like, it was better than the men's one that night, obviously, but just everything about it was fantastic. Just to be a part of something so historic and be around so many great women wrestlers that I've looked up to for so many years, oh my god, I would have loved it.
Definitely, I think that was definitely a cool Royal Rumble, a cool moment for like just wrestling and women like worldwide. It was such a cool thing to see. Obviously, that's kind of
to come from being like 8 watching diva matches, being 2 minutes long and just nothing happening, to then be a grown adult, me now watching a women's Royal Rumble. I never in a million years thought it would happen, so it's really, really amazing to see.
100%. Like, when obviously I'm a bit older, watching, like, there was no women, it was China. That was like the only women's wrestler.
Yeah.
And then it was like, it went the bra and panties stuff, the diva stuff, then into the kind of right up to now. Then I'm like, back then I would be like, I would never watch women's wrestling. Like, why would you watch that? Like, DVDs, just skip over it. Like, why would you watch this? It's not really, like, I didn't want to watch a Brian Panties match. I want to watch wrestling. Like, why do I want to watch this kind of stuff? Then now, like, I'm the biggest mark for Rhea Ripley ever. Like, I'll sit and watch her matches, even if it's a terrible match. Like, I just happy to see somebody that I like, and it's like, I just see it as a wrestler, which is so weird to see. And I think a lot of people have got that. And like the conversation we just had is, that's why we need to start evolving wrestling again into bringing the women and men together and just becoming wrestlers instead of from having this division. Because there's no point, since most women wrestlers will definitely outwork the men wrestlers majority of the time.
Like, imagine an intergender Royal Rumble. Tell me that would not be absolutely fucking fantastic.
No, 100%. I think I'd be, if you just split it 15-15 and just had, that's what I was saying, like, if you just had 15-15, say, and then so whoever wins is the face of the show for the year. Do you know what I mean? They're going to win at WrestleMania, or they lose, whatever, but they're the face of the show. Like, that's the headliner. Like, even if they lose, whatever, that's the headliner because they've won the Royal Rumble. But I don't think they'll ever do that. It's too many investors, too many people that don't like that kind of, don't want to see that. So there's too many people that when they do that in this day and age. So thanks for being on the show. It's been cool chatting to you. It's cool getting somebody who's like still really like kind of new at wrestling. I know you said you're in it for 5 years, but you've not debuted yet, so it's still new. I think it's really cool. So where would you like people to go find you? I've obviously got your link tree. Is that where you would like people to go kind of check you out the most?
Yeah, my link tree has all my socials. You can also find my Fierce Females management at F Females Glasgow on Twitter. We also have a link tree in our bio for all our social medias, including our on demand, which you can watch all of the Fierce Females content, which is really good.
Yeah, I've got all those links in the description below for the Fierce Female stuff and that as well. I've been sharing some stuff for it, which is because it's been pretty cool. I'm actually starting enjoying it. I honestly didn't know it existed until I've got a few people I've had on, and then they were telling me about it, and I was like, "What is this?" I need to check it out, and I'm like, "This is actually pretty fun to watch." And a couple of guys that women, I call people guys, dudes, whatever, it doesn't matter. So I used to know them back when I was wrestling, and they're still there. Kind of, so I'm like, it's really cool to kind of see the people that I used to wrestle with and train with still kind of be wrestling to this day. But no, thanks for taking your time to be on. If you wait there, I'll end the podcast and I'll tell you when this is going to go up and all the kind of after information.
Okay.